Chosen one, God said, watch this alone right now, because there are some instructions he will not release into a noisy room. This is not about fear. This is not about hiding. This is about hearing. You have been carrying too many voices, too many expectations, too many emotional demands, and somewhere in the middle of all that noise, the quiet voice of God has been trying to reach the deepest part of you. You were not guided here by accident. There is a reason your spirit paused. There is a reason the words felt personal. There is a reason something inside you said, do not rush past this, because this message is not for the version of you that explains everything to everyone. It is for the version of you that is tired of performing strength while silently asking God for clarity. So take a breath, not to escape the world, but to return to yourself. Let the outside noise lose permission for a moment. Let the pressure of other people become smaller. Let the part of you that has been bracing for impact understand that this is not an attack. This is not a warning meant to terrify you. This is a private invitation. God is not calling you alone to abandon you. He is calling you alone to protect what he is about to reveal. And before this message is over, you are going to understand why the room had to be cleared, why certain voices have been feeling heavier than usual, why your spirit has been pulling away from old conversations, old patterns, and old versions of yourself, and why the silence you feared may actually be the place where God has been preparing your next instruction. Stay with this until the end, because the final part of this message is not just comfort. It will show you what to do with the quiet, how to recognize the instruction beneath the noise, and why the loneliness you have been feeling is not the same thing as being forgotten. Chosen one. There are moments when God blesses a person publicly, but he almost always speaks privately first. The seed comes before the fruit. The whisper comes before the confirmation. The hidden room comes before the visible door. And this is why so much of your life has felt strange lately. You have been asking for a public sign, but God has been trying to give you private clarity. You have been looking for someone to say, yes, this is real. Yes, you are not imagining it. Yes, something is changing. But the confirmation you need right now cannot come from a crowd, because the crowd did not carry the weight that brought you here. Some people can love you and still not understand your assignment. Some people can care about you and still be afraid of your growth. Some people can stand close to you and still speak from the limited version of you they are comfortable with. That does not make them evil. It does not mean you need to become suspicious of everyone around you. It simply means that not every voice has the authority to touch what God is forming in you. There are things that are too young to be exposed. There are instructions that are too sacred to be debated. There are dreams that need roots before they can survive other people's opinions. And this is where many chosen ones get wounded. Not because they heard nothing, but because they heard something real and then carried it to the wrong room. They shared it too early. They explained it too much. They handed a fragile seed to people who only knew how to measure fruit. And when those people did not understand, the chosen one began to doubt the seed. But hear this carefully. God did not give you the instruction so everyone could approve it. He gave it to you so you could obey it. There is a difference. Approval makes you wait for permission. Obedience teaches you how to walk with God when nobody else can see what he showed you. That is why this message had to meet you in a private way. Because the next stage of your life cannot be built on the addiction to being understood by everyone. You have explained enough. You have defended enough. You have tried to make people comfortable with a calling they were never assigned to carry. And now God is teaching you the holy strength of not over-explaining. The quiet is not punishment. The quiet is protection. The quiet is where God removes the extra voices until your own spirit can recognize his voice again. And if you are honest, chosen one, you have felt this separation already. You may not have had the words for it, but you have felt it. You have felt it when conversations that used to entertain you suddenly made you tired. You have felt it when certain rooms began to feel heavy, even though nothing obvious happened. You have felt it when your body seemed to know before your mind did that something was no longer aligned. You used to push through it. You used to tell yourself, maybe I am being too sensitive. Maybe I am overthinking. Maybe I am becoming distant. Maybe something is wrong with me. But what if nothing is wrong with you? What if your discernment is waking up? What if God has been allowing certain things to feel heavier because He does not want you to carry them into the next season? What if the exhaustion is not only physical? What if it is the weight of living too long in places your spirit has already outgrown? Chosen one. One of the first signs that God is clearing the room is that you begin to lose tolerance for shallow noise. Not because you hate people, not because you think you are better, not because you have become cold, but because your spirit is becoming more honest about what drains it. You may find yourself unable to laugh at things you used to laugh at. You may find yourself sitting in a conversation and feeling like your energy is slowly leaving your body. You may notice that the same drama, the same gossip, the same emotional chaos, the same repeated cycle no longer pulls you in the way it used to. And at first, this can feel lonely, because sometimes growth feels like losing interest before you understand what you are gaining. But this is not emptiness. This is clearing. God is making room inside you for a different sound. Another sign is that your emotions may have been moving in waves you cannot fully explain. One moment you feel peace. The next moment you feel sadness. Then a strange hope rises again. Then a memory appears out of nowhere. Then you feel tired in a deep place. Not the kind of tired that sleep completely fixes, but the kind of tired that comes from carrying invisible pressure for too long. You may have asked yourself, why am I feeling so much? Why does everything feel so intense? Why can I sense a change before I can see it? Chosen one. Sometimes your spirit begins grieving an old season before your life has visibly left it. Sometimes your heart starts releasing what your hands are still holding. Sometimes your inner world changes first, and your outer world takes time to catch up. That does not mean you are unstable. It means something is being processed. Something is being loosened. Something is being prepared. God often does the deepest work before the evidence arrives. That is why you must not judge your season only by what can be seen. Another sign is the strange feeling that certain names, certain places, or certain patterns no longer feel safe in your mouth. You may not even know why. You may hear a person's name and feel a heaviness. You may think about returning to an old habit and feel resistance. You may try to make plans the way you used to, but something inside you quietly says, not this way anymore. This is where discernment can feel uncomfortable, because God does not always give you a full explanation before He gives you a warning in your spirit. Sometimes He gives you a check. Sometimes He gives you a pause. Sometimes He lets peace leave a situation so you will stop calling it home. And no, this does not mean every uncomfortable feeling is a message from God. It does not mean you should become fearful of every person or every change. But it does mean you need to pay attention when the same inner signal returns again and again with a quiet seriousness that will not leave. There is a difference between fear and discernment. Fear is frantic. Discernment is firm. Fear makes you shrink. Discernment makes you still. Fear screams for control. Discernment quietly asks for obedience. And right now, God is teaching you to know the difference. Another sign is that you have been feeling a pull to stop explaining yourself. This one may feel strange, especially if you spent years surviving by being understood. You explained your tone. You explained your silence. You explained your pain. You explained your intentions. You explained why you needed rest. You explained why you could not show up the way people expected. You explained so much that your own soul became tired of presenting evidence for its exhaustion. But recently, something inside you has changed. You do not have the same energy to defend every boundary. You do not have the same desire to correct every misunderstanding. You do not feel the same need to convince people that your heart is pure, and part of you may feel guilty about that. You may wonder, am I becoming selfish? Am I becoming distant? Am I hurting people by choosing peace? But chosen one, Listen closely. Boundaries are not betrayal. Distance is not hatred. Silence is not cruelty. Sometimes, silence is the first sign that you finally trust God enough to stop begging people to understand what only He can heal. You are allowed to protect what is being built in you. You are allowed to become less available to confusion. You are allowed to stop giving unlimited access to people who only come near you when they need your energy, but disappear when you need peace. You are allowed to grow without sending an announcement to everyone who benefited from your old patterns. And you do not owe an apology for becoming the person God kept trying to bring out of survival. This is why the private room matters. Because if you take this new version of yourself back into the old noise too quickly, you may start negotiating with the very patterns God is trying to end. You may hear the old voice that says, be available. You may hear the old fear that says, explain yourself. You may hear the old guilt that says, if they are disappointed, you must be doing something wrong. But disappointment is not always a sign of disobedience. Sometimes people are disappointed because they no longer have the same access to the version of you that abandoned itself to keep them comfortable. And God is not asking you to become hard. He is asking you to become whole. There is another sign that may have been happening quietly. You have been sensing that a door is closing, even if nobody has announced it. Something feels finished. Something feels complete. Something feels like it has reached the end of its grace. And maybe you have tried to reopen it with memory. You remembered the good moments. You remembered who they used to be. You remembered who you used to be. You remembered the hope you attached to that place, that person, that plan, that version of life. But memory is not always instruction. Sometimes memory is only proof that something mattered. It mattered, but it may not be moving forward with you. It shaped you, but it may not be assigned to your next season. It taught you, but it may not be allowed to lead you. God is not cruel when He closes a door that your future cannot enter through. He is merciful because some doors do not look dangerous from the outside. They look familiar, they look emotional, they look like history, they look like loyalty. But if you keep walking through them, you keep returning to a version of yourself that has to shrink to survive there. And God did not bring you this far to make you small again. This is why you have felt the pull inward. This is why the noise has become harder to tolerate. This is why the same patterns that once felt normal now feel heavy. It is not because your life is falling apart. It may be because your spirit is refusing to keep calling bondage familiar. And there is something else. There may be a part of your mind that has felt foggy, tired, scattered, almost as if your inner signal has been covered by static. You pray, but your thoughts race. You try to listen, but your mind jumps from fear to memory to responsibility to what if. You try to believe, but the survival part of your brain keeps pulling you back into old alarms. This is important, and I will come back to it later, because sometimes the battle is not only about what is happening around you. Sometimes it is about the frequency you have been forced to live in for so long. When a person spends years in survival, their inner world can become trained to expect pressure. Peace begins to feel unfamiliar. Clarity feels too quiet. Rest feels unsafe. And even when God is speaking, the mind can be so full of static that the spirit has to fight to be heard. But do not worry, we are going to return to that, because there is a way to understand the noise beneath the noise. For now, I want you to hold one simple truth inside you. God is not asking you to be alone because you are unloved. He is asking you to be alone because the next thing He is showing you cannot be received through borrowed fear. Let that sentence settle in your spirit. Not through borrowed fear, not through borrowed guilt, not through borrowed urgency, not through borrowed opinions. There is a voice inside you that has been covered by too many other voices, and God is bringing you back to the place where you can hear again. Chosen one. This is the beginning of the separation. Not separation from love, separation from confusion, not separation from people, separation from the version of you that kept letting people become louder than God. not separation from your future. Separation from everything that trained you to doubt you had won. And if this already feels personal, it is because the message is reaching the place it was meant to reach. But this is only the first layer. Because the deepest reason God wanted you alone is not only because of the people around you. It is because of the version of you inside you that He is finally ready to silence. Because the version of you inside you that He is finally ready to silence is not the real you. It is the version of you that was built under pressure. It is the version of you that learned to smile while carrying pain. It is the version of you that learned to explain before anyone asked, apologize before anyone accused, overthink before anyone rejected you, and give more than you had, because somewhere along the way, you were taught that love had to be earned through exhaustion. That version of you helped you survive. So do not hate it. Do not shame it. Do not look at your old patterns with disgust. There was a time when those patterns protected you from collapsing. There was a time when being hyper-aware kept you safe. There was a time when reading every tone, every silence, every change in someone's face helped you understand what room you were in and what version of yourself you were allowed to be. But chosen one, what helped you survive one season can become the very thing that imprisons you in the next. That is why God is not only separating you from certain voices around you, He is separating you from the voice inside you that sounds like wisdom, but is actually fear wearing old clothing. That voice says, do not disappoint them. That voice says, explain one more time. That voice says, keep the peace, even if it costs your own. That voice says, if they misunderstand you, you must fix it immediately. That voice says, if you rest, you are falling behind. That voice says, if you become less available, you are becoming selfish. But the voice of God does not sound like panic dressed as responsibility. The voice of God does not require you to betray your spirit in order to prove your heart. The voice of God does not call you into peace and then demand that you keep handing your peace to people who treat it like a resource they can spend. This is why the silence has felt so uncomfortable. Because when the outside noise gets quieter, the old inner voice gets louder for a while. The survival voice does not leave without trying to convince you that obedience is dangerous. It will tell you that if you stop explaining, people will leave. It will tell you that if you say no, you will become the villain in someone's story. It will tell you that if you protect your energy, you are being unkind. It will tell you that if you follow the instruction God placed inside you, you may lose the life you worked so hard to hold together. And maybe that is the part you have not wanted to admit. You are not only afraid of failing, you are afraid of obeying. Because obedience may require you to disappoint the version of life that once made you feel safe. It may require you to stop returning to places just because they are familiar. It may require you to stop negotiating with people who only respect your boundaries after they have drained you. It may require you to let some people misunderstand you without building a courtroom inside your mind to prove your innocence. And that is hard. God knows it is hard. He is not looking at you with anger because you struggle to let go. He knows how long you had to hold on. He knows what it cost you to keep going when you were tired in places nobody could see. He knows the nights you kept functioning while your spirit was quietly breaking. He knows how many times you wanted someone to notice the weight without making you explain it. And He saw it. He saw the way you carried people who did not know how to carry you. He saw the way you prayed for others while secretly wondering if anyone was praying for you. He saw the way you stayed gentle in rooms that gave you every reason to become hard. He saw the way you kept showing up, even when showing up felt like disappearing from yourself. So when God calls you into silence now, it is not because He is taking love away from you. It is because He is returning you to yourself without the costume of survival. What felt like distance was actually deliverance. What felt like loneliness was actually protection. What felt like confusion was actually the breaking of an old agreement. What felt like losing yourself was actually the death of the false self. And what felt like silence was not silence at all. It was instruction. Chosen one, this is the part you need to hear with your spirit. God has not been silent because he had nothing to say. He has been speaking through what no longer gives you peace. He has been speaking through the doors that will not open, no matter how hard you push. He has been speaking through the exhaustion you feel when you keep trying to fit into places that were only assigned to your past. He has been speaking through the strange timing, the repeated confirmations, the conversations that arrive at the exact moment, the sudden memory, the unexpected interruption, the feeling in your spirit that says, "This is not random." You kept waiting for thunder, but God was using wait. You kept waiting for a loud command, but God was using discomfort. You kept waiting for a sign in the sky, but God was using the loss of peace inside your own chest. And this is why you had to receive this alone. Because if you keep asking the crowd to interpret the quiet, you will keep missing the instruction. There is a reason Samuel heard his name in the night, not in a marketplace. There is a reason Elijah did not find the deepest voice in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire, but in the stillness that came after the noise. There is a reason Mary received something sacred before everyone around her could understand what it meant. God often speaks in the place where human approval cannot interrupt him, not because people do not matter, but because your obedience cannot be built on their permission. This is where the private room becomes holy. The private room is where God shows you what your public life cannot explain yet. The private room is where he gives you peace before he gives you proof. The private room is where he teaches you to stop confusing being seen by people with being known by him. And I sense this strongly for someone listening right now. You have been asking God to make the next step obvious, but he has already made the next wrong step heavy. You wanted a map. He gave you a loss of peace. You wanted a full explanation. He gave you a repeated pause. You wanted everyone around you to agree. He gave you an instruction that required trust before agreement. And now the question is not, has God spoken? The question is, are you willing to honor what he has been showing you? Because deep down, you know there is something you are not supposed to keep carrying. Deep down, you know there is a conversation you are not supposed to keep rehearsing. Deep down, you know there is a version of yourself you are not supposed to keep defending. Deep down, you know there is a door you are not supposed to keep trying to reopen with emotion, memory, guilt, or fear. And God did not bring this message to shame you. He brought it to strengthen you, because discernment without courage becomes torment. You can sense the truth and still suffer if you refuse to obey it. You can know something is over and still bleed from trying to keep it alive. You can feel God calling you forward and still exhaust yourself negotiating with the past. So here is where your spirit must learn a new way to listen. The first thing you must practice is the inner room rule. Before you respond, before you explain, before you make a decision from pressure, imagine there is a room inside you that belongs only to God and the truest part of you. Do not move your body. Do not force a dramatic moment. Just picture the noise standing outside the door. Picture the opinions outside the door. Picture the guilt outside the door. Picture the old fear outside the door. And inside that room, ask one quiet question. What remains true when nobody is watching? That question will expose many things, because fear usually needs an audience. Pride usually needs an audience. Performance usually needs an audience. But truth can sit alone and still remain. If the instruction only feels right when you are trying to prove something, be careful. If the decision only feels urgent when you imagine disappointing someone, be careful. If the path only feels peaceful when you silence your spirit, be careful. But if something remains quietly true after the noise leaves, pay attention. That may be where God is pointing. The second thing you must practice is what I call the noise fast. Not with your hands, not with a list, not with a performance. Just inside yourself, for a short sacred window. Stop giving every voice equal authority. When a thought rises, ask, did this come from God, from fear, from guilt, or from the old version of me trying to stay safe. When a memory rises, ask, is this memory giving wisdom, or is it trying to pull me back into a place I have outgrown? When an urge to explain rises, ask, am I trying to bring peace, or am I trying to purchase acceptance? This is not about becoming cold. This is about becoming clear, because clarity is not always a loud answer. Sometimes clarity is simply the moment you stop calling confusion normal. The third thing you must practice is the 3-signal test. A true instruction from God may challenge your comfort, but it will not require you to abandon your character. It may stretch you, but it will not make you cruel. It may ask for courage, but it will not feed your ego. It may bring a holy fear, but beneath that fear, there will be a grounded peace that does not need to shout. Fear rushes. God leads. Fear accuses. God corrects. Fear traps you in what if. God brings you back to what is true. So when you are trying to discern the next step, do not only ask, am I scared? You can be scared and still be called. Ask something deeper. Does this bring me closer to truth? Does this require me to become more whole? Does this produce peace beneath the trembling? If yes, then do not reject the instruction just because your nervous system is learning how to trust a new season. And this brings me back to something I told you earlier. Sometimes the noise is not only around you. Sometimes the noise is beneath the noise. Sometimes the static is not only spiritual or emotional. Sometimes your mind has been trained by years of pressure to stay in survival mode. And when you try to pray, listen, focus, or believe, it feels as if something inside your own brain keeps pulling you back into fog. You want clarity, but your thoughts scatter. You want peace, but your mind keeps scanning for danger. You want to trust God, but the old alarms inside you keep turning every quiet moment into a battlefield. And this matters, because the chosen one often carries a sensitive spirit and a powerful mind. When you were younger, you may have learned quickly, sensed deeply, imagined vividly, and picked up on things other people missed. There was a natural brightness in you, a God-given ability to perceive, connect, create, and understand. But life has a way of covering that signal. Pressure covers it. Fear covers it. Modern noise covers it. Constant stress covers it. And after a while, a person can begin to feel like they are living below the level of who they were created to be. This is why I want to share something carefully. There is a simple 7-minute audio ritual called the Genius Song that was created around the idea of brain entrainment and the gamma state, a state often connected with focus, insight, intuition, and those moments where the mind feels clear and awake again. I do not want you to hear this as a magic solution. It does not replace prayer. It does not replace obedience. It does not replace healing, wise choices, rest, or the courage to follow what God is already showing you. But for the person who feels like their inner signal has been covered by static, it may become a tool, a small daily practice, a way of helping the mind return from survival noise into a clearer state of attention. And I believe tools can be gifts when they are used with wisdom. The way it works is simple. You put on headphones, listen for 7 minutes, and allow the sound to guide the brain toward a more aligned rhythm. That is the heart of it, not striving, not forcing, not trying to become spiritual enough. Just a short space where your mind is invited out of chaos and back toward clarity. There was a woman who described something similar to what many chosen ones feel. She had tried meditation, spiritual retreats, and different practices, but still felt as if the connection she wanted was blocked by a kind of inner fog. After using the 7-minute ritual for a short time, what she noticed first was not some dramatic performance. It was the return of synchronicity, the return of inner timing, the return of a feeling that life was speaking in a language she could understand again. That is the kind of shift I want you to think about. Not hype, not pressure, not a promise that every problem disappears overnight, but the possibility that your mind may need support while your spirit is learning to hear again. Normally, tools connected to brain training and biofeedback can cost hundreds per session or thousands for devices people use at home. The Genius song was made as a digital audio track, originally priced at $49, and right now it is available for $39 for the people who feel led to explore it. It also comes with 4 bonuses and a money-back guarantee, so if you explore it and do not feel it is for you, there is no need to force it. I only want to say this clearly, because many people search for things like this and end up on fake pages, copied products, or random audio tracks that do not contain the same technology. If this resonates with you, use the link placed in the description and the pinned comment, because that is the safest way to find the original information, the bonuses, and the guarantee. And once you look at it, return to the deeper point. The tool is not the source. God is the source. The sound is not your savior. It is only a possible support for the mind, while your spirit returns to clarity. Because the real message tonight is not that you need something outside you to become chosen. You are already chosen. The real message is that the noise has been too loud, and God is bringing you back into alignment with what was already placed inside you. So whether you use that tool or not, do not miss the deeper instruction. Your mind needs quiet. Your spirit needs space. Your calling needs protection. Your next season needs a version of you that is not constantly reacting to old alarms. And this is why God is dealing with the false self before he reveals the next door. Because if he showed you the next door while you were still obeying the old fear, you might try to enter your future with the posture of your past. You might walk into a blessing and still apologize for taking up space. You might receive an opportunity and still look for permission from people who never believed in your capacity. You might be called higher and still shrink your voice because someone once taught you that being visible was dangerous. You might step into peace and still create chaos because chaos is the only environment your nervous system learned to trust. God loves you too much to let that happen without healing the foundation first. So he clears the room, then he quiets the crowd, then he confronts the inner voice that kept you tied to survival. And then, when you are no longer confusing fear with wisdom, he begins to show you what the silence was protecting all along. Chosen one. This is why the last season felt so strange. You were not just losing people. You were losing the need to be shaped by people. You were not just becoming quiet. You were becoming honest. You were not just feeling alone. You were being returned to the sacred place where your spirit could hear without interruption. And now the noise has been named. The false self has been exposed. The instruction has begun to rise. But there is one revelation left, and this is the one that explains why the room had to be cleared before your next season could begin. The room had to be cleared before your next season could begin, because what God is placing inside you is still fragile, but it is also powerful. And fragile things are not weak. A seed is fragile, but it can become a tree. A child is fragile. It carries a future. A calling is fragile when it first awakens, but once it takes root, it can change the direction of a life. That is why God did not let everyone touch it. That is why certain conversations suddenly felt too loud. That is why some relationships began to feel crowded, even when nobody was attacking you. That is why the same places that once felt comfortable began to feel too small. God was not trying to make you lonely. He was protecting the part of you that could not grow under constant interference. This is the revelation. You were not hidden because you were forgotten. You were hidden because something was being formed. You were not separated because you were rejected. You were separated because God needed your spirit to become strong enough to carry what people would later notice. You were not called into silence because heaven had nothing to say. You were called into silence because the instruction was too important to be diluted by fear, guilt, performance, or the opinions of people who only knew the old version of you. And I believe the Father is saying to someone right now, I did not separate you to shame you. I separated you to show you. I did not quiet the room to punish you. I quieted the room so you could finally hear what I have been placing within you. Chosen one. This is why the last season felt like you were being pulled away from almost everything familiar. You thought you were losing connection, but you were losing confusion. You thought you were losing people, but you were losing the need to be shaped by people. You thought you were becoming too quiet, but you were becoming honest. You thought your life was slowing down, but God was stopping you from carrying old noise into a new door. And now you must understand who you are becoming, because the private room was not only about protection, it was about identity. You are not just someone who survived difficult seasons. You are someone who learned how to see through them. You are a seer in the sense that your spirit notices patterns before your mind can explain them. You can feel when something is off. You can sense when a room has changed. You can recognize when words sound right, but the spirit behind them feels wrong. This has made you feel strange at times, but it is not a curse. It is a responsibility. You are a truth carrier, which means you cannot live in lies for long without feeling the weight of them. You may try to pretend. You may try to keep peace. You may try to make yourself comfortable with what everyone else accepts. But eventually, something inside you refuses. That refusal is not rebellion. It is alignment. You are a wounded healer, not because pain made you holy, but because God refused to let your pain become wasted. The things that broke your heart also taught you how to recognize the broken places in others. You know what silence can hide. You know what strength can cover. You know how someone can look fine and still be carrying a storm. And because of that, your compassion carries depth. You are a spiritual warrior, not because you fight everyone, but because you are still standing after battles that tried to make you bitter. You have had reasons to become cold. You have had reasons to stop believing. You have had reasons to shut your heart completely. But something in you kept choosing light, even when the darkness felt personal. And you are a bridge. This may be one of the reasons your life has felt so heavy. Bridges carry weight. Bridges connect what has been separated. Bridges get stepped on by people who never think about what it costs to hold the path together. You may have spent your life standing between conflict and peace, between old patterns and new possibilities, between people who could not understand each other, between who you were and who God kept calling you to become. But now the bridge is being strengthened. Not so everyone can keep crossing you without honor. Not so you can keep carrying what was never yours, but so you can become a passage for what is true, what is healing, what is holy, and what brings life. This is why God needed you alone. Not because your life is supposed to stay empty, but because your identity had to become clear before your connections could become healthy. If you do not know who you are, you will let anyone name you. If you do not know what God placed in you, you will let anyone use you. If you do not know the sound of peace, you will keep calling chaos familiar. If you do not know the difference between guilt and guidance, you will keep obeying pressure and calling it love. But that season is ending, not with noise, not with revenge, not with a dramatic announcement. It is ending in the quiet place where your spirit finally says, I cannot go back to being who I was, just to make other people comfortable. That sentence may cost you some approval, but it will give you back your soul. Chosen one, the private room was preparation. God cleared the room because He is teaching you how to carry the next season without leaking your strength into every demand around you. He is teaching you how to move without needing everyone to understand the movement. He is teaching you how to receive instruction without turning it into a public discussion. He is teaching you how to protect peace before peace becomes visible provision. Because, for those entering this kind of season, 3 areas often begin to shift. The first area is your relationships. You may begin to feel a difference between people who love your presence and people who only love your availability. There is a difference. Some people love you because you bring peace into their chaos. Some love you because you listen. Some love you because you absorb what they do not want to face. But when you stop absorbing, the relationship may reveal what it was truly built on. Do not be afraid of that revelation. It may hurt. It may feel confusing. It may make you question whether you are becoming too guarded. But God is not asking you to become suspicious. He is asking you to become discerning. The right people will not require you to abandon your spirit in order to keep them close. The right people will not punish you for becoming whole. The right people may not understand every part of your calling, but they will not mock the peace that calling requires. The second area is your purpose. You may feel drawn towards something that does not make complete sense yet. A new direction, a new discipline, a new message, a new kind of work, a new way of serving, a new level of honesty with yourself. And because it is not fully formed, you may be tempted to dismiss it. Do not dismiss the seed because it is not yet a tree. God often begins with a burden, a repeated thought, a holy frustration, a quiet desire that does not leave, a strange ache that says, there is more, but not in the way you imagined. You do not need to force the whole future. You need to obey the next clear step. The third area is provision. Provision does not always arrive first as money. Sometimes provision arrives as clarity. Sometimes it arrives as energy returning. Sometimes it arrives as the right conversation, the right idea, the right opening, the right courage, the right separation from what was draining you. God knows how to provide in layers. Do not despise the first layer because it does not look like the final answer. A calm mind can be provision. A protected spirit can be provision. A closed door can be provision. A delay that saves you from the wrong path can be provision. A private instruction that keeps you from making a public mistake can be provision. So when you leave this message, do not rush back into the old noise and ask it to approve what God has just made clear. For the next 72 hours, treat your spirit like a room God has just cleaned. Do not invite every voice back in. Do not reopen every conversation just because guilt knocks. Do not answer every emotional demand as if urgency is the same thing as assignment. Inside yourself, watch what tries to steal the peace. Watch what makes you feel small again. Watch what makes you feel like you need to explain your existence. Watch what pulls you back into the old version of you. And when you notice it, do not panic. Simply say within yourself, "This no longer has permission to lead me." That is the sentence. This no longer has permission to lead me. Say it inside when fear rises. Say it inside when guilt tries to govern you. Say it inside when an old pattern dresses itself like responsibility. Say it inside when the noise tries to return to the room God just cleared. This no longer has permission to lead me. Not because you are angry, not because you are proud, not because you are rejecting love, but because you are choosing obedience. Now, I want to guide you through something quietly. You do not need to move. You do not need to change where you are. If you are driving, keep your attention on what is in front of you and let this remain only a picture in your inner world. Imagine there is a room within you, not a room made of walls, but a room made of peace. At the center of that room is the part of you that has been waiting to breathe without being watched, judged, pulled on, or misunderstood. Now imagine that outside the room are many voices. The voice of guilt, the voice of fear, the voice of old responsibility, the voice of people who only knew you when you were surviving, the voice of your past self saying, "Do not change too much, it may cost you something." Do not fight those voices. Do not argue with them. Just see them outside the room. And inside the room, imagine God placing a quiet light over the center of your spirit. Not a harsh light, not a light that exposes you to shame. A warm light, a steady light, a light that does not demand performance. And as that light rests there, let one truth become clear. You do not have to carry every voice to be loving. You do not have to answer every demand to be faithful. You do not have to shrink your calling to make your growth easier for others to understand. You do not have to reopen a door God closed just because memory made it emotional. You do not have to apologize for the peace you were instructed to protect. Now imagine the door of that inner room closing gently, not slamming, not in anger, not in bitterness, just closing. And as it closes, the noise becomes quieter. the guilt becomes quieter, the fear becomes quieter, the need to explain becomes quieter, and in that quiet, you do not need a long speech from heaven. You only need the next true thing, the next faithful step, the next honest yes, the next holy no, the next small act of obedience that proves you trust God more than you trust the noise. Let that become enough. Chosen one, this is how the next season begins. Not with everyone clapping, not with every question answered, not with every person understanding. It begins when you stop betraying the instruction just because someone else cannot hear it. It begins when you let silence become sacred instead of threatening. It begins when you realize that being alone with God is not emptiness, it is alignment. And if this message reached you in a deep place, you can leave one simple sentence in the comments as a marker for yourself. The room is cleared, not as a performance, not as a ritual for attention, but as a quiet agreement with what God is doing in you. The room is cleared. The noise no longer owns your obedience. The old fear no longer gets to rename your discernment. The old guilt no longer gets to call your boundaries selfish. The old version of you no longer gets to drag your future back into survival. You are allowed to move with God quietly. You are allowed to protect what is sacred. You are allowed to become someone your past does not fully recognize. You are allowed to stop explaining the transformation and start living it. And now, let this closing prayer cover the place in you that has been tired. Father, cover the chosen one listening right now with peace that does not depend on the approval of people. Guard the instruction you have placed inside them. Give them discernment that is gentle but firm. Give them courage that does not need to be loud. Give them boundaries without bitterness. Give them clarity without pride. Give them patience for what is still forming, and strength to release what you have already finished. Where fear has been speaking, let peace become louder. Where guilt has been leading, let truth take its place. Where confusion has been circling, let the path become steady. Where the old self has been fighting to survive, let the true self rise without shame. Teach them to know the difference between a voice that pressures and a voice that leads. Teach them to know the difference between loneliness and consecration. Teach them to know the difference between a closed door and a lost blessing. And when they leave this moment, do not let them return to the same noise in the same way. Let them carry the private room within them. Let them walk slower when pressure tries to rush them. Let them listen deeper when fear tries to shout. Let them obey the next clear step, even if they cannot explain the whole road. Chosen one, you were not called alone because you were forgotten. You were called alone because this mattered. You were called alone because the instruction was sacred. You were called alone because God was not trying to take your life away from people. He was trying to give your life back to you. So go forward quietly. Go forward clearly. Go forward without begging the wrong voices to bless what God has already spoken. The room is cleared. The instruction is protected. The next season has already begun.